The sea stretched wide and gray under a heavy sky, the desolate beach marked only by the footprints of a lone traveler. Paxton, an amateur archaeologist, had come to the small coastal town of Seaburg seeking refuge from the pressures of his life. But what he found here was no sanctuary. He had read about the legend of the Three Crowns, ancient relics buried centuries ago to protect England from invasion. The story fascinated him. Locals whispered about the last remaining crown, supposedly hidden somewhere near Seaburg, but they warned him too. Disturbing it would invite something far worse than bad luck. The warnings should have been enough. But Paxton was a man driven by curiosity, by the thrill of discovery. He spent hours combing through the archives at the town's library, piecing together clues from old maps and forgotten manuscripts. And when he finally pinpointed the location, a wooded hill near the beach, he packed his tools and set out at dusk. The dig was grueling. The sandy soil resisted his efforts, and the gathering darkness seemed to press down on him. But then, just as he was about to give up, his spade struck something solid. His heart leapt as he unearthed an ancient, ornately carved crown. It was heavier than he expected, cold to the touch and strangely warm at the same time. As he held it in his hands, the wind picked up, whistling through the trees with an almost human wail. Paxton told himself it was nothing, just the coastal weather playing tricks on him. But as he packed up and started back toward his rented room, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being followed. Paxton's room at the inn was small and unremarkable, but tonight it felt suffocating. The crown sat on the table, its intricate design catching the dim light of the single lamp. He tried to focus on his notes, on cataloging his discovery, but his mind kept drifting back to the strange sensation he'd felt while digging. A knock at the door made him jump. It was the innkeeper, a gruff man with a weathered face. "You've been out near the woods, haven't you?" he asked without preamble. Paxton nodded, unsure how to respond. The innkeeper sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "Listen, I don't know what you found, and I don't want to know. But if it's what I think it is, you'd best put it back. It's not meant to be disturbed." Paxton tried to laugh it off, but the innkeeper's expression didn't change. "Just be careful," the man said before leaving. That night, sleep eluded Paxton. Every creak of the floorboards, every groan of the wind outside made him sit up, heart pounding. At one point, he thought he heard footsteps in the hallway, slow and deliberate, but when he checked, the corridor was empty. The next morning, Paxton decided to leave Seaburg. He told himself he was being silly, letting local superstitions get to him. But as he walked to the train station, he couldn't ignore the feeling of eyes on him. The platform was nearly deserted, just an elderly couple and a man in a dark coat standing at the far end. Paxton tried to focus on the train schedule, but when he glanced up again, the man had moved closer. There was something off about him, the way he stood, the way his head tilted slightly as if listening to something only he could hear, and his face. Paxton couldn't quite make out his features, as if they were blurred or obscured by shadow. When the train finally arrived, Paxton practically leapt aboard, relief washing over him as the doors closed. He found a seat near the back and tried to calm his nerves, but as the train pulled away from the station, he looked out the window and froze. The man in the dark coat was standing on the platform, watching him. And as the train picked up speed, Paxton could have sworn he saw the man start to move, not walking, but gliding along the edge of the platform, keeping pace with the train. The journey back to London was a nightmare. Paxton couldn't shake the sense that he was being followed, even in the crowded streets. He caught glimpses of the man in the dark coat in shop windows, reflected in puddles, always just out of reach. He tried to tell himself it was his imagination, the guilt of taking the crown playing tricks on him. But deep down, he knew better. That night, as he sat alone in his apartment, the crown on the table seemed to pulse with a faint, otherworldly light. He tried to ignore it, to focus on the reports he was supposed to write, but the air in the room grew heavier with each passing minute. And then he heard it, a faint scratching at the window. Paxton's apartment was on the 3rd floor. There was no way anyone could be outside. But when he turned, he saw a shadow move across the glass, too tall and thin to be human. He backed away, heart hammering in his chest as the scratching grew louder, more insistent. The crown on the table seemed to vibrate, a low hum filling the room. And then, with a sudden crash, the window shattered. Paxton never told anyone what he saw that night. When the landlord came to check on him the next morning, he found the apartment in disarray. The crown was gone, and so was Paxton. The locals in Seaburg say he returned the crown to its resting place, burying it deep in the woods where he had found it. But others claim he wasn't so lucky, that whatever he had awakened didn't let him go. The hill near the beach remains untouched to this day. The locals avoid it, their warnings to outsiders growing more urgent with each passing year. And if you ever find yourself in Seaburg, you do well to heed their advice, because some things are better left buried. If this tale of shadows and secrets has left a chill in your spine, don't let the darkness end here. Like this video, share it with someone who loves a good scare, and subscribe to the Book of the Dread for more haunting stories that linger long after the lights go out. Remember, not every book has a happy ending.